And it's just seeing how all these things worked out when you're going the direction that you're supposed to go. You know it. Doors open up that you'd never expect. When I became more authentic, I used to try to hide my story, or even in recovery, I'd hide it. Like that's a joke, like nobody knew, But as soon as I opened up, that's when all the floodgates opened. And that's when the world around me started moving and guiding me in the right opening doors, like I said, or new opportunities would open up.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce III, he, him pronouns.
And Liz McKee, she, her pronouns. And I'm going to remember to do the thing at the top. Oh, yeah, Molly McGee, please introduce yourself.
She, her pronoun.
We're so glad to have you here, Molly. And because I said I was going to do this at the top of each episode, and I've still forgotten for many of them, I'm going to do the thing and say, if you would like to support the show, we would be so grateful if you'd hit subscribe or follow on whatever podcast app you might be listening to us on so that you don't miss a single thing. So we got cool stuff coming for you, and we want you to be here for it. So, Bryce, how you doing today?
I'm sitting here with my wrist out, looking at my watch, waiting for y'all to go subscribe and like the podcast real quick. We'll be here when you get back.
He's tapping his foot. Hit pause. Go subscribe.
I'm good. I went to Orange Theory this morning, and the days that I do that in the morning time, like my day, I don't know, like maybe this is the thing for like the ADHD where it's like, because I be really focused after I get a workout in the morning. It's crazy. It's like, I don't know what it is, but I just, I like to lean into it a little bit more. And they got this thing called the Inferno. It's like a benchmark challenge where it's like anytime you're talking about benchmark challenges or like personal best, I don't want nothing to do with that. But I think I'm going to do it. It's on Wednesday, and we'll see how it turns out. So I am feeling good. How is your energy, Liz?
My energy is also very focused because I also did a workout this morning, and I have the same thing. It's almost like starting the day with something that I feel, I don't know, kind of like proud of, makes me go into the day feeling positive about the way I'm going to approach it. And then it's like not a tumbleweed, domino effect or something, where it's like that positive feeling has positive action. And then I am more tuned in and able to be excited about everything I accomplish. And it's just amazing because everything in my brain and body tells me in the morning, like, no, we're not going to do that. Let's just eat another bowl of cereal and just sit on the couch a little longer. And then lo and behold.
Well, look at Liz and Bryce both worked out today by the time we get to the podcast episode. Yeah. They don't call us the Yin Yang Twins for nothing.
I know it. This is a wellness influencer account now, just so everyone is aware.
But I am excited to have this conversation with our guest today. Liz, offline, behind the curtains, was super excited about today's guest. And I am excited to dig into this conversation. Who do we have today?
We have the wonderful Molly McGee, whose voice you already heard, and we could not be more grateful that she's taken the time to spend with us, and also for everything that she does just on the planet. And as a partner of the Phoenix, Molly is one of the founders of Awaken, which is an organization we're going to hear more about, does some cool things on the Phoenix live stream platform. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of the difference that she is making in the world. And we're so glad she's here. So hi, Molly, and welcome. And how are you doing today?
I'm solid, doing really, really good. And boy, you all are speaking my language. The power, Awaken, the power of a morning routine. You can't beat it. So I won't jump all the way into that one right now, but definitely I'm a firm believer that changes the trajectory of your day. Day in and day out, it changes the whole trajectory of your life. And so, yeah, I get up at 4 a.m. every single day, and it's worth it. Absolutely.
We were like
4
very
a.m.
accidentally on brand with this interview, the way we just started. That was not intentional, actually. Like, didn't even realize it till you said that. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. That's exactly what you do. And here we are, like, we worked out. It's a great idea we just had. Hey, Molly, what do you do?
So,
It's so true though. And there's so many reasons not to do it. So many reasons that people want to, sleep in and myself too. But once you get those feel good juices flowing, sometimes it becomes hard to argue with yourself when you start developing that habit. So I'm definitely a big proponent of that. It's worked miracles in my life.
That's a good way to put it, because it's like, I don't want to be the person who wakes up and exercises. Like, I don't think I've ever desired to be that person. Like, those people are like not the people that I've seen myself in. But once I feel it, it's like there's no denying that this is, we can look for so many other things. Like, well, maybe I should go to the psychiatrist and get prescribed, or maybe I should drink more caffeine, or maybe I should, what about this? And it's like, oh, well, did you get up before 12 p.m.? It's like, no. Like, do you try to do things that are uncomfortable? No. I like warm, hot showers for 2 hours long, and I like candy and sweets, and I like walks on the beach.
I feel very attacked right now, just so you know, Bryce. I'm sitting here with my candy wrapper.
But it's like those uncomfortable things, kind of like, at least for me, are some of the catalysts, especially when I do them early in the day, that gets that momentum going, that sends me to be able to knock out some more hard things.
Oh, absolutely. And then the more you follow through, you want to do it the night before. It sounds like a great idea. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to do this. And, if you do it, you're building that confidence in yourself. Every single time you follow through on that promise to yourself, it just keeps building that confidence, and you're walking through your day with a new swagger and a new energy. And it's beautiful.
It totally is. Yeah.
I'm going to make a morning person out of you. Yeah.
I think I'll never be like a morning. I think I'll be a person who woke up in the morning who's not a morning person, or like a person who someone would consider to be a morning person but is an imposter. Please do not take what I'm doing as who I am.
You reserve the right to change your mind and to evolve as a human and have seasons and all those things. I would say that is always okay. Yeah. Molly, I'm so excited. After I say this, I'm really excited to hear more about Awaken, so that, folks at home know what we're talking about. But I just wanted to mention that I remember my first full year of sobriety, which was followed by a big giant fall. I was all about that, like, get up at 4 and I have to do these things. And if I don't do those things, I am not successful. And if I, get up at 6 instead of 4, then I have failed the day, and I am going to do like several jobs and have I gave myself such an intensely structured, strict routine, and had to just produce throughout the day, that I wound up burning out so hard, and it actually ended up being a pretty intense relapse situation. So I think the way that you talk about mornings and the way you do Awaken, and Bryce, what you're talking about, just allowing that to not be like who you are forever, I think is really powerful, because it's easy to do that and think that you have to always decide that it's going to be forever, and then it's not helpful or healthy. So how do you do that in a way that's really healthy and helpful? Because I know that you do, Molly. I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, for me too, it's about being fluid and listening to my body. If I need that extra, I don't really have a choice to get an extra hour now since of the Awaken program, but on the weekends or times when I have off, I'll sleep in a little bit. I'll listen to my body, but also it's not, it's structured with loosely structured. So I might work on affirmations. What's going on in my life? Do I need to focus on the way I'm speaking to myself, or do I need to focus on what my intentions are? It's kind of being really listening to what's going on, my own intuition, and following it instead of just bullet points down the line. Following my own intuition is how I make it work. Because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I have been that way, where it's like, boom, boom, boom. If this isn't done, I'll ruin my day before it got started simply because I didn't check the box. And that's not what it's all about by any means.
Yeah, that intuition, at least for me, is informed by compassion, because there's so many days where like I just have to restart. I can get to about 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. and things aren't the way that I want them to be, and maybe I'm inside my head and I'm ruminating, and maybe I didn't meditate when I was quote unquote supposed to. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I jumped out the bed because I slept in a little late, and like I have a choice now. And that's the beautiful thing about recovery. Like I'm an active participant in this process. And so I have a choice. Do I perpetuate this spiral, or do I take a second, step back, allow myself compassion, and press the restart button? And that has allowed for me to like become in tune and walk hand in hand with that intuitive nature, where it's like, okay, what do I need right now? Because underneath all that usually is like my experience telling me to like be receptive to like my needs in this moment versus what it is that it's supposed to be or what I should have done. And that's a practice. That's a practice.
Mm-hmm.
Sure is.
Absolutely.
The whole idea of like a morning routine, I feel like that became trendy like a few years ago, or maybe it just came into my kind of sphere where it was like, having a morning routine is such a powerful thing. And sometimes it's easy, it's kind of similar to recovery, where it's easy to be like, this works for me, therefore this should work for everybody. But like having that ability to be like, this is a cool thing that works for me, so how can I give you the tools to build it for yourself, is really a powerful thing. So I'd love to hear, Molly, like just we've spoken just kind of in general about what practice might look like, but how did this come to be an area that you do have your own practice and you're sharing it with other people? And I know recovery is a big part of that. So however you want to hop into your kind of story as it involves that, please do.
Absolutely. Kind of moving backwards here is, when I was coming back, we'll get into the hospital part later, but when I was trying to rebuild my life all over again, I didn't have the knowledge even to understand the tools, if you will, that I teach now, the techniques. I didn't even know what I didn't know. And I always say it was almost like it was divinely brought to me, because one by one, these different tools and lessons and things were brought to me. It seemed like in the order and the timing that I needed them. And I started using intentions. Intentions was the very, very first one. Dr. Wayne Dyer, The Power of Intentions, was a huge, huge change in my life. And his book found me not once, but twice along my journey when I tried to stop my journey and relapse. And so it was, his work has been huge for me. But, and like you were saying, Bryce, that's another thing I'm kind of backing up here with intentions, starting your day over. I might set an intention in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, I'm knocked off that intention when something happens, whether it's driving or your boss or something. You refocus, you give yourself that moment, that breath to bring yourself back into your center and look at your intention again, read your intention, set yourself up so that you're continually looking at it throughout the day and really steering towards the person that you want to be and what you want to accomplish. Versus let life take over. Oh, that's what Awaken is really all about is, we have that 5 seconds of bliss when we first wake up, and then our mind kicks in, and then reality hits, and who am I? What I got to do today? What's wrong? What bills do I have? And it's about catching those thoughts and that momentum before it has a time to really dig in and take hold on you. And that's what you drag into the rest of your day. So how can I stop that? Through meditation, affirmations, yoga, to really set myself up to be the most powerful version of myself, whatever that looks like that day. Someday 40% might be your best, but 40%, so it is, where other days you're going to have more. And like, you mentioned, having that compassion for yourself and understanding that you're doing the best that you can. And that's all you can ever ask for. But being consistent about it. That's what we didn't learn our thought patterns and our patterns of behavior overnight. And we can't unlearn them and relearn new ones that way either. So it takes that consistency and accountability of having a group, much like, with the Phoenix group, having that support around you means everything.
That community, learning how to build a life that is a reminder of the life that we're looking to build. Everywhere we go, everything we pick up, being that reminder. Because even for me, I've noticed, like, if I don't look at my calendar, maybe like 3 or 4, and the way I got my calendar is set up every day. It my 3 most important things. And so if I don't like refocus on those things, I can just go off on a tangent. And then I get to the end of the day, I don't feel accomplished. I don't feel like I've done anything. And it's like, oh, just the simple act of like looking at this thing and reminding myself multiple times, what am I supposed to be doing today? And then that tying into the bigger picture of like, what do I want to do this month? What do I want to do this year? Like, that's really helped me specifically. And I could just imagine the different experiences that we all may have, what different tools can show up and help each individual person, and how people can develop an understanding of those tools the more that they pay attention to that intuitive nature of like, yo, this is what you need specifically, because what Bryce need, what Liz need might not be the same thing. And so I'm curious, Molly, you talk about Wayne Dyer and discovering authors like that, at least for me, came from a personal need. Like, I need something that's other than what it is I was given. So I had to seek something that was, I don't even know how to speak the language, but this feels right. And I started tuning into that. So like, what has your personal process been? What was your personal need? And did that play a role into creating Awaken?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So to back up a little bit, with my journey of recovery, I first went into treatment in 2009, and I had checked myself in, and it was a terrifying experience, but at that moment, more so than later on, I'll kind of explain that. But it was really funny because even though I called, when it came to actually walking through that front door, I remember I was going to back out. I couldn't do this. My heart was racing. I was sweating, all those things. And the man that opened up the door, it was like Lord of the Rings. What's his name with the white hair?
Gandalf. I don't know why I know that. I don't think I've seen it, but I know that.
White hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a dog. And I was like, okay, sold. I can do this. The dog and Gandalf got me. And so it was my first, and from there, it was a wonderful experience of, of course, everything that we're doing that's new is terrifying, but it was so good. And I did I stayed sober for 3 years, but there was a problem there. Now, I also went to AA during that time, and I still love AA. I know it's not for everybody, but I personally love it. And, I'd go to the meetings, I'd listen, and I'd check it off. Like I was saying, I'd check off the box. Okay, went to a meeting. Okay, not really participating, not becoming a part of the group, kind of on the outside. And then sure enough, 3 years into it, I got I call it cocky, where I got this, I know what I'm doing now. I don't need to go to these meetings and do this work on myself. And and I hear this story all the time that's when it's very subtle and thoughts start creeping in, and pretty soon, you take your first drink, and that's the beginning of the end, which it was for me as well. When lightning didn't strike me, and I had that first drink, I thought I was going to be okay. Well, of course, it doesn't ever end that way. But it lasted about 2 years. And to kind of shorten this up a little bit, I started having such bad anxiety attacks that I was running 3 restaurants at the time. I was a director of operations, and I had a lot of these management under me for 10 years. And I couldn't even have a meeting with them. I would have panic attacks. So I went to my doctor, and I was honest about my drinking, which is surprising, but I was. And at that time, he put me on a drug that is not to be mixed with alcohol. Well, what happened then, I ended up having stage 4 kidney and liver failure. And ended up, it was, I actually, to kind of paint this picture, I remember the night before it all happened is I had isolated myself completely. That's why being on this and doing Awaken is so much of a miracle in my life, is because I became agoraphobic. I couldn't even leave the house. I couldn't even walk into a grocery store. And so I had pushed everyone away. I was alone, all alone. And I remember that night that everything changed. I wasn't even drinking to get drunk anymore. It was maintaining just so I wouldn't go into withdrawal. And I was the most hopeless and lonely I'd ever been. And that was when everything failed. My liver and kidneys failed. It seemed like in an instant. And I came to consciousness with 5 or 6 cops standing over me, and I said some bad words at that moment because I'd never been arrested, but I knew that was not a good sign. And I woke up in the hospital after that. And so at that time, when I was in and out of consciousness, I had a 10% chance of survival. They were expecting my heart to give out. And so, of course, they called all the family they were giving their goodbyes. It wasn't, let's, wish her well. It was really saying goodbye because they had no plan for me to make it. But I managed to pull through. So it's been quite the journey.
Man, this is not even the major point of the story, but I'm so impressed and amazed that you were honest with someone about the drinking. First of all, I think that's a huge thing. Not very many people do that. You learn in healthcare when you're doing healthcare that take what somebody tells you and, double it, triple it, because that's typically the case. But you told the truth. And then I'm surprised that you were prescribed something that was so harmful with that alcohol. Was that meant to be maybe this will keep her from doing it? Maybe this will be the thing that makes her stop? Or was that just a Hail Mary?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what his thought process was, but it was because I'd actually had a couple seizures during that time too, from not being able to. My body does not do good with pills anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and so the addition of these type of pills, my body didn't like it. Add the alcohol, and that's a real rough mix.
Man, yeah, that is wild. Well, and you pulled through, and then what did it look like after that?
It was ugly. It was like a really bad country song. I recently, in fact, I don't know if you would ever be able to show this, but I got a picture of myself in the one picture that they were allowed to take of me about 4 weeks into it, because I was in the hospital for 7 weeks. My entire face was, yellow. My whole body was yellow. My eyes were yellow. And I'm unrecognizable in every way, shape, and form. And my hair was about an inch long because they were giving me chemo actually to try to stimulate my body to be able to eat, which is backwards to me. I didn't know anything about how this stuff works, but little amounts, tiny doses of it apparently. And so, pair that with my lack of nutrients, my hair was falling out anyway. And so, yeah, in every way I was unrecognizable. So I was actually I thought my life was bad before. I was facing the rest of my life living in a home. I was on dialysis, as you can imagine. I couldn't walk. I couldn't even feed myself. And so luckily, my parents wouldn't let that happen. And even though they were older, they're still alive, they took on the responsibility of helping me. And so I moved in with them, which in my world, because I had my own house, I had my dog, I had my life. That was my personal version of hell, was being, totally relying on somebody else and living now with your parents again. That's my version of it. And it was from that moment on, I knew it was going to be, I was going to get my life back or I was going to die trying. That was my thought process at that time. And because again, I was still on dialysis when I left the hospital. And about a week sometime during the week following me leaving the hospital, this is where it gets a little spiritual here. And what changed really changed my life too was, I was sleeping, and it would be comparable to sleep paralysis, where I was very lucid in my own head, but I couldn't open my eyes. It was darkness, but I couldn't move or open my eyes. And I felt this energy moving up my spine, a very, very intense energy that I had no idea what it was, but I thought it was going to kill me. In my own head, I was trying to, if you've ever been in a dream and you're like, wake up, this is going to happen. That's what I was doing. I was screaming at myself to wake up. Meanwhile, this energy is twirling up my spine and it's just undescribable. And it stopped at the base of my head or top of my neck when I woke up, and I was hysterical, bawling, and I tried to describe it to my dad who came in. He heard me, and of course, if you've ever gone through something like a liver or kidney, especially liver failure, you have a lot of hallucinations to begin with. And so people really don't trust what you're saying because, well, number one, you're a drunk, and two, now you're hallucinating. So you try to tell them what's going on for real. A lot of times they don't believe it right away. And so within a couple hours, I fell back asleep again. And here's where the kind of the kicker comes in. Now I know is that when I fell back asleep and I woke up, I had wet the bed. Okay, that doesn't sound really good, except for that was my kidneys kicking in. Right there was my healing. But I didn't know it. I was mortified that I had wet the bed, a horrible, horrible thing. But from that moment on, the doctors were absolutely in shock. They couldn't understand how my kidneys just, boom, healed like that. But that is what I'd like to explain to you and your listeners is why I have such a strong belief in the energy, the chakras, the kundalini, all those things that you hear about is very, very real. And I've experienced it. And so the more that we can consciously, intentionally work with that energy, the better it is for all of us, to really heal ourselves.
That's incredible. Wow. When you're describing that, I'm picturing I'm a yoga teacher too. And I just remember all the charts with all, the energy that's swirling up the spine and the two different sides. And just the thought of having that as a sensation does sound incredibly scary and incredibly powerful. And
Well, I didn't, to clarify though too, I had never heard of this.
Oh, yeah.
It took me 5 years before I realized I had a kundalini energy or an energy healing. I had no idea. I described it. This might age me a little bit, but those gumball machines you used to see in grocery stores where they swirl, that's what I was trying. I was like, it's like those gumball machines where yeah, that didn't go over very well. So that's what came to my mind, not some spiritual, energy.
Yeah, and it's interesting how we'll have these experiences, and then when we set off to learn more about what took place, we find the language that helps us to identify it. And for me, those have been the most authentic experiences versus the ones where it's okay, I have the language, now I'm looking for it. Where is it at? It's look, I am ignorant of the problem. Even when it comes to recovery, I didn't know anything about 12-step. I didn't know anything about recovery communities. I didn't know anything about peers. I didn't know anything about anything. I just knew I needed something, and it wasn't what you keep trying to prescribe me. I don't need any more of that. I didn't even know how to ask for what I needed, but I knew I needed what I know now to be this life, So it's that is an insane story, and I'm super curious because I've done quite a bit of digging into NDEs, the near-death experiences, and there's been ways that I've experienced some things too, and I know how much of a profound effect that's had on my life, and so I'm super, super curious, where that took you and what that did to you and how you approach life.
This is the part I use because I tell my story about, at some of the treatment centers here, and I leave out the kundalini part because a lot of people don't understand it. But I'm really glad that I get to open up here about the NDE as well, because I did, as far as getting a little bit deeper in the NDE, I did go somewhere. I did experience, I had a near-death experience, and I watch them like crazy now to see if anybody else has one like mine. And it doesn't do me any good to even say what it was because everyone's is so different. But I do know that mine was a place of choice at that moment. It really was kind of like you have a choice, but you really don't have a choice, that kind of deal. And so one thing is for certain that I will always take with me is that we're never alone. You hear that, but until you embody that and really understand it and know it, that makes a huge difference in your life. But it doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that I don't get down or all those things. But I know that we're never alone, and that there is life after this. The life does continue. Our consciousness continues, and I'm absolutely certain. So I'm not afraid of death. I'm more afraid of living, of what the pain sometimes that life can bring, more than what's waiting on the other side.
That's super duper interesting. Since we're talking NDEs, I had an experience, and mine kind of had the opposite effect on me, where I was asking, and then I finally got shown, and what I was shown was a togetherness, a almost like the individuality that comes from you being you and me being me, and that was gone. You wanted to know what's up here, and the togetherness, everything is together. I'm like, whoa, but it scared me because it's I wasn't even done being a father yet. Being together, there's no separation. So it's dang, well, how am I going to be a father to my daughter? How am I going to play the roles that I've learned to play? I'm quite enjoying playing these roles, but I was knocking on the door, tell me the answer to life. What is the answer? What is the meaning of all of this? And then I got shown that, and it's okay, let me come back here and let me just
Just
eat
kidding,
it
okay.
one bite at a time. And it was in this period where I had this journal, and I just finished the journal, and I went to go shopping for another journal, and looked at the shelf and seen this beautiful journal, leather bound, and it was quite thick. It was probably the biggest journal I'd seen. And the first thing that came to mind is man, I won't finish that for the next 3 years. And that was the space I was in, where it's why is the first thing I think about finishing? Where life is meant to be lived and experienced, and that can only happen right now, this very moment. So it's less about finishing. And then when I bought the journal, the first page is why was the first thing I thought about when I bought you, to finish you? Maybe I could just rejoice in this page. And and like I said, I've done a lot of digging in the NDEs, and that experience, and then the way that it helps you to cultivate that understanding that you just shared with us, usually leads people to take different action that they haven't taken previously. And so, super curious, if you can't tell, I'm about to jump out of my skin. How did you notice that there was a change in the way that you approach life, and the way that you showed up for your experience?
Not right away, I would say. For sure, when I first had the NDE, and I had a short-lived experience of everything being, the sky was bluer, the flowers were brighter, everything was that much more. But honestly, I was so focused. Again, I could barely walk. It was like a Rocky theme song in where I was at, because I was walking. That's all I could do, was try to walk and then read. And then I'm not talking about self-help books. I was reading anything to get my brain working again, because it was absolutely not working in right order. I mean, I could think in here, it was working, but when I would try to talk to other people, it would come out like gibberish, so it was retraining my brain. And so it was really pushing myself hard. And I'm going to be frankly honest with you, for all your listeners out there, I even relapsed after that. I mean, 1.5 years into it, because I thought, I'll just use God. I don't need groups or communities or, other people. And I lost the whole meaning of it somewhere along the way. The amount of damage that was done to my body at the time also sent me into an early menopause, which I didn't know. And so if any woman out there who will know what I'm talking about now, that when your mood changes that drastically from one moment to another and you don't know why, let alone when you do know why, it was a whole nother world. And I just remember saying to heck with it. I don't care what happens. And it was a short-lived one, a relapse, short-lived, but again, another part of my journey that I needed. It was the one that really settled it for me and started changing. It's funny, we can always connect the dots looking back. So that was part of the trajectory again that was changing me. Because that's the second place during that relapse was when the Wayne Dyer's book found me in the most strangest place you would ever, find a Dr. Wayne Dyer book. But yeah, that just solidified my beliefs in in the truth and what my truth was. And so from there, actually, ironically, my confidence grew because of that relapse, if that makes sense, as I brought myself out of it and realized the mistakes that I had made. And okay, all right, this is what I did wrong. All right, let's figure this out and move forward. So it's kind of like neutral thinking, which is one of the things I teach. It's like, okay, take the emotion out of it. What's your next right move? And so it has completely changed. Like I never would have ever dreamed of having a program like Awaken or anything like that. I couldn't even speak in front of people still. That was still there. That didn't just go away. So I had to push. I had to have the faith that this was something bigger than me. It wasn't an idea. This is where I understand when people say that a dream is planted in their heart. And it's not like I came up with this idea. This idea was planted in me. And it was my duty, my obligation to push through my own fears, my own resistance, and get to that point. And it's every day. It's every moment. It's pushing past a fear or a resistance to the next level. And so it's been a constant journey of that. But having that faith that it is always bigger than me.
And so in developing Awaken, and I think too, for like people who are listening, who are kind of like me, who don't necessarily know exactly what Awaken is. Is it a program? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a community? Give us a bit of insight into what Awaken is and how you were led to creating that thing that challenged you to get outside of yourself and into building something.
Absolutely. Well, I had started doing what you would call a morning routine on myself before any of this. I was starting to work on affirmations, like I said, work on intentions, all of these different tools to start retraining. I knew that my thinking was off. So how do I fix this? I had a moment one night, another one of those godcidents, as sometimes they're called.
What a great word.
I was working at a golf course, Great Life Golf Course, I'm still with them. And I should have been exhausted. It's a hard, working at a golf course is hard no matter what you're doing. And I was kind of restless, irritable, discontent, all those things that you hear about. So I knew I needed to move some energy. So I was also trying to strengthen my arms. So I started doing push-ups. And I had my headphones in and this random thing played that I didn't pick. It was called The Miracle Morning. And I was so angry because this guy is getting paid millions and he's doing what I'm doing, At that moment, I was mad. I was. But then that right there, the rocket went off, that rocket of thought that if he can do it, I can do this. I'm already doing this and my company needs this. And that just set the ball rolling to, okay, where's the courage to email the CEO? Where's the courage to do the next step? Oh crap, it worked. Okay, how are you going to talk in front of people now? So each step of it has required me to get outside of myself and have faith in something bigger. Yeah, so it's so I should kind of explain what it is. So it's every morning, Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. And what we do is it's an hour of power. So we have some inspiration, shorter videos about inspiration that usually have a lesson, something for you to think about in their own right. Also followed by some meditation, yoga, and then I do a different lesson about what I call mind training. So just like we were talking about, how do we change those old behavior patterns, thought patterns, behavior patterns, all these things? How do we pivot and start switching them to work for us instead of against us? And so it's a combination of all these things, but it's the consistency, every day showing up that really the people that have been on for, it's going to be almost 2 years that I've had members for, and watching their lives bloom. That is the greatest gift is they've caught it, they understand it, and they're applying it. And it's like, and they, some of them are in recovery, some of them aren't, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's there supporting each other no matter what their journey is. So it's a great community. It's all the above that you mentioned. It's a program, it's a community, it's accountability. It's a little bit of everything. But I also would like to add, I did have a partner to begin with. I wouldn't be here without the partner that started with me, Kristen. Her life journey has taken her in another direction, which is wonderful. But all of it was, in hindsight, was meant to be. She was in the right place at that right moment to hear about this idea I had, and it's just seeing how all these things worked out. When you're going the direction that you're supposed to go, it. Doors open up that you'd never expect. When I became more authentic, I used to try to hide my story, my near-death experience, or even in recovery, I'd hide it. Like that's a joke, like nobody knew, But as soon as I opened up, that's when all the floodgates opened. And that's when the world around me started moving and guiding me in the right, opening doors, like I said, or new opportunities would open up. It's been a trip.
And that's just to give even more clarity to folks who are just learning about what Awaken is, which I think I said when I first introduced you, I was like, I don't have the right word. And I said organization. And as soon as I said it, I'm like, that's not what it is. But I guess that's kind of like even the direction you're going in. But I love, program, community, practice, all those things. And I know you have that, like you said, like with the company that you had worked with, and you've like developed a community within this, but you also do this with the Phoenix, right? Like people can do this with you, even if all they have is that Phoenix app, right? Like, can you talk about that a little bit? How can people do that with you?
Absolutely. We're doing it every Thursday at 9:30. That's Central Time. And I'm doing just a regular Phoenix, just like I would at 6 a.m.
Online.
On Zoom. Mm-hmm. Online. Yes. And it's every week it's something different. And it's, depending on people's schedules, people are starting to understand it, and it's starting to grow and really have that community feel now, where I'm seeing the same people returning. We all might be from the East Coast, West Coast, and I'm in South Dakota, but we're all one. We're all together in this, and we're all on the same page. It's just about people helping people. So yes, 9:30 on Thursdays, or Central Time.
Central Time. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I know time zones are just the bane of our existence. But yeah, we'll be sure that we link so folks can find that. But yeah, that's just so aligned with everything that we do at the Phoenix when it comes to recovery. And one of my favorite things about the recovery community is that it's just such a choose your own adventure kind of thing, like what is going to be meaningful for you in this season of your life, and to find something that feels meaningful that you can do, consistently, like we said in the very beginning, that consistency and day after day, and be able to wake up and feel like you're proud of yourself. And gosh, I don't know about you, but mornings were just like one of the greatest gifts of recovery, that early recovery, waking up in the morning and being happy about it and seeing the sunrise and feeling like you were part of it, it just all kind of goes together. And I mean, Awaken is just a perfect name for it. And I think it's in all caps too, isn't it? Which always made me feel like, like wide awake.
It is. Yeah. It is. It has multiple meanings to it. It's not just about the morning. It's really waking up to who you really are, what you're capable of. You can play with that word so much. Really waking it up to the divinity in everyone. It's beautiful.
So we're getting closer to wrapping this interview, and I do have a closing question for you. But I'm just super interested from a personal standpoint. Like, who are some of your favorite authors, influencers that have impacted you in the way that you see the world?
Oh gosh, if you could see my bookshelf, it's big. It has obviously Dr. Wayne Dyer. Another one of the best books I have to say is, he's deceased now. He just died last year. But if you ever heard of Trevor Moawad, It Takes What It Takes.
Mm.
It is single. You have or haven't?
I have not.
Have not. That has to be. He was the biggest brain trainer in the sports world, and so oh gosh, I can't remember the football player right now that wrote the foreword. He's in NFL, but anyway, the best book I've ever read that breaks everything down. A lot of these things into simple, easy to understand. Of course, it's all sports terminology, but gosh, there's so many different authors. Eckhart Tolle, however you want to pronounce that. I could go on and on. I just got The Alchemist in the mail today.
Yeah, Paulo Coelho. Classic.
There's some that are really practical and some that are really spiritual.
Yeah.
So it just depends.
Maybe we'll get like a list from you and we'll put them in the show notes, because I'm sure folks are going to have that same question and want to like go to Amazon or their library or whatever and read some of those books.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard for me to think there's so many, but it's
when I was nodding my head, and you had said that they had recently passed away, I thought she was gonna say Bob Proctor.
Him. Yep.
Big mentor of mine. Napoleon.
Abraham Hicks.
Oh man, that was a whole season for me. Oh my goodness.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there's
like you go through months of it and all of a sudden you switch to somebody else.
Yeah, because you got, at least for me, I have to, but I can like really dig in. And there's still a lot of ways how there's still a lot of ways where it's stuck in me. There's like this initial excitement, and then there's like the integration. And the integration is, how do I use this to be able to show up in life? Like, how do I use this for the continuous rising of the quality of my life and the life of those around me? And that's where the integration comes from. But there's always like something exciting, and it's like, ooh, this is the way. Ooh, this is the way. And even because I teach too, and like, even in how I teach, like one of the main things I teach is just compassion and understanding for the process, because nobody can have all the answers for you, and nothing is black and white. The more I live life, the more the colors intermingle with each other, and the more, yes, I'm this and I'm this, versus like, oh, it's either all the way this or all the way that. When I first came into recovery, I was given Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wasn't even given it. He told me that he recommended it to people that never got it every time he recommended it to people, and it was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna be the person who goes and gets it. And both of those, you have the spiritual and then you had the achievement, but there was spirituality built into the achievement, and there was a bit of achievement and like tangible action built into the spirituality. And that's just been like, that was the foreshadowing for what was to come.
Well, and really, too, the simplest terms that I could ever even follow my own self without trying to find the latest, greatest thing is follow your emotions. Your emotions are your guidance system, and if this is a vibratory world, everything's vibration. If I'm happy, more happy things are going to come my way. If I get stuck in that negativity, I'll be attracting that too. So the more, and that's science. Science is proving this stuff now. So it's not so woo-woo. It's becoming fact.
Yeah. But
in people's eyes.
But get ready for part 2 of this interview where Bryce and Molly go super woo-woo. Cause I float like something. There was a time where I had somebody had gifted me copper because of my my tendency to float. Like I needed something to ground me, because sometimes I could get too floaty. It's like, yo, you got to come back down and allow other people to integrate it as well, especially if you're looking to teach. Like, you float. But yeah, I do woo-woo. We do woo-woo here, Molly.
We do woo-woo. That's so fun to say.
Do a part 2 woo-woo.
I love that. Well, and I also love, I think this is the cool thing about this podcast and this community, is that we have one, interview where it's with someone, recently we talked to Alex, who has CrossFit gyms, and not to say that you can't, be all these things and you can be woo and also part of CrossFit, but, we'll be very focused on like, physical exercise and like how much that is someone's just like deepest pathway. And then we will go into, Bryce vibrating off the planet unless he has copper, and we'll go into like different kinds of books. And, it's just this all pathways kind of conversation we have. It's recovery. And then it's also just life, and it's just this bouquet of people that it's okay to switch around and find a different path today than maybe you had yesterday. And we're all just doing the best we can and sharing the stuff that lights us up. And I think that's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful to hear it, to be part of it, to be in this bouquet with
and
both
it's
of you.
contagious.
It is.
Like when I see your eyes light up, Liz, when you're talking about something, or Bryce, I mean, then I get excited. And then you guys are probably like, Molly, slow down. You're starting to talk really fast. But it's contagious. And that's the beautiful part is it's building everybody up.
It is.
Yeah, nothing is more contagious than that enthusiasm. And that enthusiasm, I think it comes from the spirit, it comes from the heart. And when you hear people talk about recovery or their pathway of recovery, and I think like Liz and I can't speak for both of us, but I'm sure I can speak for both of us in this respect, like because we have been gifted with the ability to hold a space for so many people to share their pathways. I speak for myself because maybe me and you, Liz, we need to talk about it before I can speak for you, right?
I'm so excited what you're going to say.
but like I have my mind around different ways to approach recovery has just continued to expand. I've dibbled and dabbled. I've checked different things out due to being exposed to different things. And just having that freedom and the excitement of it's almost like, when I switch my mentality from like no new friends to, I haven't even met everybody who's gonna love me yet. So there's this element of, tomorrow I might be exposed to a way to approach life, recovery, intentionality in a way that I haven't yet. And I can implement it into my life. And that can be what sets me on a new journey and a new season of life. And that is always around the corner. And it's like, this is a beautiful experience. So we definitely appreciate you coming on to the show and sharing your experience, Molly.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask a question. If you could go back to any iteration of Molly throughout your life thus far and give that version of Molly a piece of advice, what iteration would you choose? And what piece of advice, words of wisdom would you give her?
I'd go back probably from the beginning then and say, love yourself. Love yourself. Encompassing that self-worth, that everything revolves around love. And if I can't, I heard this the other day that it just spoke to me. You always hear that, know thyself. Well, you can't know thyself without loving thyself. And so to me, it all starts there, because all the decisions that I make and the choices from that moment come from my love or lack of love for myself.
I think there's definitely been times in my life, and even probably several times today, that the thought of like loving myself feels completely insurmountable. And like, sometimes I think about that. Oh my gosh, I don't know why this came to mind. Bryce, be ready to laugh at me. But that scene in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams is talking to Matt Damon and he's like, it's not your fault. And he's like, whatever. And he's like, it's not your fault. And he says it over and over and over again. Then suddenly it's just like, oh crap, it's not my fault, and then he kind of breaks down. It's like almost like having that conversation with yourself the way you would with someone that you love very much, where you're just like, I love you. And the person's like, I'm not lovable, and like, I love you. Like, it's almost like you're doing that internally. Like I've had that experience internally where it's just like, I'm not going to stop saying this to myself until some little part of me believes it. And it doesn't always work, but I think it's a powerful practice because it can feel like that's just not possible sometimes. And I think it's okay to, I don't know, on some level, fake it till you make it, and then just keep saying it because you know that it's in there, that it's true. And if you don't, then maybe just hear our voices saying that it is, that you are a person who is lovable and loved. And
that's another book that one of my favorites you reminded me of, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. Super good.
Add it to the list.
And it is, you had it spot on. He repeated it. He was a venture capitalist. He wasn't a self-help guru, and he repeated, I love myself. And just keep repeating that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Liz. And I loved it. I love that metaphor. I don't know why you would think I would make fun of that metaphor. That was actually gorgeous.
That is a great metaphor.
It
I'm
didn't
so
involve
glad.
pickles or Inspector Gadget or anything.
It wasn't a 90s cartoon. I know, I'm growing. See the growth that's happening? That's what self-love can do, I tell you.
Well, I
Oh,
absolutely love myself, and I love this episode, and I'm super excited to be able to get this episode out to the listeners. Let us know where we can find you. We're going to put everything in the description of the podcast so you all can be able to tap into all the ways that Molly is activating. But while you have their ear, is there any specific shout outs that you want to shoot?
No, it'll probably be in the finer notes. They can reach out to my email address, but that's too much to say on here. So I don't have a fancy website or all that stuff. It's kind of word of mouth, and that's how I go. That's how I roll right now. So
love it.
Simple.
Roll with the flow. Amazing. Well, we definitely will link everything. And, an easy way to connect with Molly is to download that Phoenix app and go to events. There's a special spot on the events page where you can go to join from anywhere, live stream. And that's where you can, really with one click, sign up for a class. So we hope that you do that. And we hope you continue to join us. Thank you everyone for being here. It's just mind-blowingly beautiful, and we're just so grateful that you're tuning in. So thank you, and keep coming back. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you, or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.